Hello, welcome to the Idea to Empire podcast. I'm Chanaye Jackson, I'm your host, and I can't wait for you to meet our guest today, Lin Schussler-Williams. She is a certified Reset It coach and just an all-around great lady. She's a speaker, an author. Lin teaches a thinking technology that changes perspectives and increases results. For over 20 years, Lin has worked with individuals and groups, helping them accelerate their results and create richer, more fulfilling lives. Lin is excited to have recently become one of the first certified Reset It teachers in the world with a mission to help individuals learn to reset their programs and conditionings that hold them back or keep them stuck. Lin is a recognized speaker on topics from sales and networking success to creating lives of balance and prosperity. Today, I would love for you to put your hands together for Lin Schussler-Williams, a certified Reset It coach out of Unstoppable Partners, LLC. Hi, Lin. How are you?
Hi, Chanaye. I'm so glad to be here.
For sure. Thank you for coming on the podcast, where I'm looking forward to this conversation. I gave everyone your bio so they know, a few sentences about you, but tell us a little more. How did you get to where you are today?
Well, I always say you don't get to be my age in this world and not have quite the backstory, right? But the short version of it is I had a long career in corporate America in the sales arena. I worked for big companies, small companies. I was in technology. And while I was doing that, I also had a side gig career as a certified conflict resolution trainer and facilitator. So that was really where I learned to be a speaker and a coach and learned to help people change their thinking around things and coach them to a new result. And I got really burned out from the technology sales career. And one day I left. And I don't recommend it, but I didn't tell my husband I was walking away from my job that day. I didn't even tell myself. It just happened. I knew I was done and I was done. So from that point on, I decided I would become a coach, and I became a transformational coach and immediately was in a mastermind with other coaches. And they were ex-ministers, teachers, social workers, HR executives, people who had A, never sold anything in their lives, and B, literally had training that said, if you charge money to help people, you're a bad person, right? So I started helping them, and quickly one of them said to me, I can't let you stop helping me. You've changed my business, but you have to let me pay you. And so for the next dozen years, I was a sales coach for solopreneurs, coaches, and consultants. I wrote a personal development book, 9 Little Words to Change Your Results. And I knew that a lot of the problems entrepreneurs have it happens between their ears, right? It's mindset, it's thinking. But more than that, I learned it isn't just our conscious thinking, it's our subconscious programming and conditioning. So that's how I got to be a certified Reset It teacher and help people with that. So yeah, that's how I got here.
Tell us more about what certified Reset It means. Well, you're a certified Reset It coach, teacher. I love that.
Yeah, we say teacher because what we're really doing is teaching our clients in 2 sessions how to use this process that's based on neuroscience and quantum physics and psychology to reset their subconscious programming and conditioning. And so these are the things, all of us are programmed. Parenting is absolutely 100%, we think, teaching our kids how to think about themselves and the world. Our parents taught us how to think about ourselves and the world, or whoever raised us. And so that's what programming is. It's outside input, just like programming a computer, right? The computer doesn't know what to think till we input the parameters, right? So that's what these subconscious programs are. And conditions are life over and over and over, repeated experiences over and over and over that condition us to believe, oh, when this happens, it means this. And so those become filters in our subconscious through which we see ourselves and the rest of the world. And, they can lead to things like limiting beliefs, right? Things that get in our way of our own success. And that was the case for me. I had an experience as a child. My father's business experience as a child affected me, and I came away from it thinking it isn't safe to be too successful. And I can track that thought through my whole life, right? And different, like through relationships with people, food, money, career, education, all the things, right? I can see where that had an influence.
Yeah.
And so getting rid of it became a kind of a life's mission for me.
I think that most people don't believe how much a limiting belief can be so limiting, right? Like you were just, you were just saying you can track it since you've identified it, right? So It seems like you identified it quite a while ago. Since you identified it, you can track its through line and so much of your interactions and the sort of the way that you move in the world. I think one of the ways that a business owner should really look at themselves is really understanding what their limiting belief or beliefs, there can be a few, I guess, are. How would you suggest that they find them? They need to go through Reset It, of course.
Right. Well, we do, first of all, for Reset It purposes, it doesn't matter whether you come into it knowing what they are or not.
Sure.
However, there are some questions that we ask to help people identify where their programming and conditioning lies so that they can reset it. And one of the things I would just say to everybody is, what are the patterns in your life, right? What are the patterns that lead you to say, or what are the times in your life where you respond to something and you think, wow, that's a familiar feeling, right? Every time this happens, I react this way. I know that feeling, right? That's likely, it may not be a limiting belief, but it's likely the outcome of a program. And here's the thing, programs and conditions are embedded in our subconscious. You can't think your way out of them, right? There's a lot I've been a personal development junkie for most of my adult life. And there's a lot of change your thoughts, change your reality, and think positive and all this sort of stuff. But when it comes to these foundational underlying subconscious programs and conditions, you just can't think your way out of them. If I could have thought my way out of them, I'd have done it a long time before I did. No doubt.
It was hard. It was hard then, and why would I have kept myself in this same situation for all this time? Yeah,
exactly.
That totally makes sense. So, the people listening, we've talked about our small business owners, mid-sized business owners.
Yeah.
They're in a place of struggle. Do you have any tips or advice for getting out of that hard spot?
When we find ourselves in a place of struggle, and I'm so familiar with entrepreneurial life and having lived it myself for a dozen years and having worked with lots of people who are solopreneurs mostly, but small business owners as well. I would say, don't feel like you're in it alone. Join a mastermind of other business owners or seek a coach. Find somebody who can be in it with you and knows what you don't know. And don't hesitate to invest in yourself, invest in your skill growth, not just things like personal development, but invest in whatever it is you feel stress around. Well, invest in that. I'll give you an example. My business hit a new level when I hired a bookkeeper. I hate bookkeeping. I hate doing taxes. I hate not my gig. And when I hired a professional bookkeeping service, it upped my game. Mm-hmm. So look at the things that aren't yours to do and don't do them. right? Invest.
Yeah.
It's an investment in your success, because when you're not doing the things that drag you down, or not doing them well enough, then you have more to give to the things that are yours to give to your business.
Yeah, when I work with my clients, we talk a lot about let's operate in our own zone of genius. Everything else
Yes.
is for somebody else.
Yes. Because they become such energy leaks too, right? Like you're just
Mhm.
like all your energy is going to these things that aren't yours to do in the first place, right? So
Mhm.
yeah, that's what I would say to get out of the struggle is um, don't feel like you have to be in it alone, and get the help you need, right?
Yeah.
And if you need help figuring out that, call Chanaye.
Well, thank you for helping me with that. I love that little plug there. One of the things that I think about too, sort of continuing this thought about zone of genius and like doing the
Mm,
things that you should do, I think a lot about how much brain space are you taking up or not taking up for activities or actions that either belong to you or don't belong to you. I think about like what will keep you energized for
right,
the work that you're up to, right? Like I
right.
love talking to my clients about fixing their systems and figuring out how to up level their business model.
Yes.
But like using your example, but if you ask me to do my bookkeeping, I'm like, why am I here? So what other suggestions do you have for this?
Well, I think, it's so important to make connection. Like, I think, we read a lot these days, Chanaye, about loneliness and how loneliness is the new smoking and stuff, right? It's
Yeah.
aging people. And the last few years that changed the world for so many people upped that. And I think that's a big thing. And it's a big thing for entrepreneurs. I think it's important for us to cultivate connection in business. It's different for different business owners. There are some business owners who are never going to end up at a Chamber of Commerce networking meeting, right? Because the
Sure.
Chamber of Commerce is just not their scene, or it doesn't matter to their business or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But where are the connections that do matter to your business? And where can you cultivate those and be consciously doing that so that you're not feeling like you're in it alone? Because nothing can be lonelier than an entrepreneurial journey if you let it be, but you don't need to let it be.
Yeah. Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. It's a choice for sure.
Yeah. Oh, it's a
One
conscious
way or
choice.
another.
Yeah. Yeah, one way or another. Exactly right. And if you don't make it, if you don't make the conscious choice to make the connections, then you're making a conscious choice not to, right? And so what about that? And then you're running the lonely risk, right? It also, I think, feeds the overwhelm risk, right? The overwhelm risk is so high for entrepreneurs to start with. And when we get in that, if we're in it alone, we're in it by ourselves kind of thing, that feeds that overwhelm as well, which doesn't serve anybody.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think when we think about our personal lives, we use, oh, I'm overwhelmed, I'm frustrated. We
Mhm.
typically go and talk to someone. It could be a friend, it could be
Yeah.
a therapist, it could be a family member. It doesn't really, really matter. Sometimes it's a
Yeah.
stranger. Oh, we don't know. But,
Right.
but then we forget that we're still people when we're an entrepreneur, when we're a business owner, we like forget and we forget to do the
Right.
same things that make us successful.
If you are your whole business, if you're a solopreneur, then it's even more. But even
Yeah.
the small business owner with 10, 20, 50 employees, right? Those are people who are sitting in a lone spot, even though they're surrounded by a bunch of people. And so we just have to remember to not be in a, alone. And I think that connection with other business owners, if that's you, then who else is in your spot? Who can you connect with and network with? And there's so much good to be had from that, not just business development good, but support
Right.
and all the things, right?
mentorship. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I think about when folks, I myself, how about I use myself? When I think about the way that I connect with people is
Yeah.
I always look for somebody who's close to the same level that I am. And then maybe
Mhm.
someone who's a little above me, like something I could
Yeah.
probably reach within 1 to 2 years. And then somebody that's like crazy ahead. They might be 10
Yeah.
years ahead. But the goal is that I have sort of benchmarks. One, like those are some goals that I can start
Yeah.
thinking towards. But then also, people who've been there know what it's like. People who are in it, they're like, I'm using this, I'm doing that, giving you some suggestions to get
Yeah.
through I don't know, I'm going to call it nonsense.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
hard stuff of being the person.
Yeah,
For
that's right.
our
I
listeners.
agree. I think those are great ideas.
What other pieces of advice do you have?
Well, going back to my experience with entrepreneurs is that our biggest hurdles, our biggest things that are in our way. I worked a lot with people in sales. Either they were the selling owner or they were the whole business. So they were the only one bringing in business. And I've even done a lot of training for salespeople in the past. And that idea that the stuff that gets in our way is in between our own ears, right? That just comes back around for me all the time. And I see it over and over and over. And what are we going to do about that? Like, how do we take responsibility for it as business owners? How do we see how it's affecting our business? We're all about making a plan and having goals and build a spreadsheet for something. But those are the things that you kind of can't think your way out of with those typical thinking tools. So, I encourage everybody to just be aware, be more, you've just heard this podcast. So be aware of when something pops up and you think, wow, if I weren't thinking that way, I'd have an easier time getting XYZ done, or right, finding the solution. And then, just reach out for the help you need and get it.
That totally makes sense. I think about sort of your first point, and you talked a little bit about building be a part of a mastermind,
Yes.
which is both not all the time, but many times is not only an investment into your personal development, because there is a little bit of that
Yeah.
regardless of the type of mastermind you're in, but then
Yeah.
also your business development coupled with like creating community. I feel like in masterminds, especially, it's not really about the leader or the person who's, like keeping the conversation going, maybe even doing some instructing.
Right.
Actually, everybody else who makes it up.
Yes.
So if you have a quality group of folks in your mastermind, you can grow really far in multiple areas of your life and business.
Yes, I agree with that so much. It's been my experience that mastermind groups for different purposes have been some of the most phenomenal change makers in my life. And I've had some of the best support I've ever had from exactly that, from being in that space where, and it is never just the facilitator,
Right.
if it were just the facilitator, that'd be coaching, right? This is a mastermind. And so what we're talking about is a community of people who bring together for whatever their purpose is. If it's business owners, say, who are looking to grow their business and they all want to talk about techniques for business growth, then hopefully, like you said, there's some people in that mastermind group who are about your level and understand your language and maybe even your industry. And then there's some people who, are at varying levels so that there can be help from all sides. But mastermind groups are, I think, one of the best things entrepreneurs can do.
Actually, a mastermind is what sort of propelled me into the work that I do now.
Yeah.
It was just a comment from another person who was like, "Hey, like you kind of have a skill at this. Have you thought about selling something, being like making this a part of a service?" And I was like, "Oh."
I love it. Well, it was someone in a mastermind group when I was a new coach. That's the reason I wrote my book. She said she went to hear, all of us used to go hear other speakers and kind of see what the tips and tricks of the trade of speaking were. And one of our mastermind members went to see this speaker who had a little book. And hers was really a booklet. It was like stapled together. And the friend of mine in my mastermind group came back and said, you guys, I went and saw this woman speak, and she was selling this booklet in the back of the room for $10, and it did not have one word in it she had not just delivered in her, hour workshop. And we could all have a little book by Christmas. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was just because somebody said that. Prior to that, I had thought I had to write like Lin's answer to God in the universe or some big tome,
thousands and thousands of words.
Thousands of wisdom-filled pages, right? But she said that, and I was like, well, I could just write about one tool, and that would be a little book. And you can see my book is like this big. It's not as big as your head, and it's, That's how I got a book, was from a comment in a mastermind group. Like, that's what we're saying here, is that's the power of a mastermind group. Like, it can help you pivot directions and do things in your business that bring value to you and your clients.
What I really feel like the conversation we're having is like summed up in two things. One, create community. Masterminds are wonderful. Yes. And then two, work on what it means to be deprogrammed, deconditioned without thinking your way out of it.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%.
Final question. Is there a final word of wisdom that you feel like, a phrase? It doesn't have to be anything, super in depth, but something for us all to keep in mind as we make it through the next days.
One of my favorite authors is Maria Namath. She's a PhD, and she wrote a book called Mastering Life's Energies. And I use this with clients who are trying to plan. And Maria Namath said, life gets luminous when we have games worth playing and goals worth playing for. And we can all, as entrepreneurs, relate to this idea of how much fun it is, right? When your business is working, when you have games worth playing and goals worth playing for, and it is all like just on the move, momentum is happening, all those sorts of things. Yeah. And so whatever it is, like reach for that luminosity in your business, reach for that luminosity in your experience of creating something the world needs out of your business and all of that. And just know it's possible and keep reaching for it.
I like that word, luminosity, being luminous. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Lin.
Thank you.
You're wonderful. Tell people where they can follow you, where they can find you, but also what do you have to share with them? What's some offers that you're promoting now?
Well, you can always find me at meetlin, L-I-N, here.com. So that's kind of a digital business card. It gets updated depending on what next adventure I'm off on. So you can always find me there. An interesting story I'd love for people to go see. It's just a quick little 5-minute video story, is at 54yearthought.com, 54yearthought.com. And you'll hear my story about the thought that held me captive for 54 years. It's an interesting story. As a child, my father was in business, and Jimmy Hoffa was in charge of the mob, and our lives were threatened. And that's what led to the thought that held me captive for 54 years. So if you want to hear the rest of that story, just go to 54yearthought.com. And, you'll see what I'm up to there. The Reset It information is there.
Lin, I met you and I was like, this is a lady for me. Everybody needs to know about her. I too am going to hop into the Reset It. I know that I have some thoughts. Don't know what they are exactly, but I know they're there. So, like you said, we're recording this here in the holidays, and I was like, there's one of the things. There's one of the patterns. So take it from me. I haven't done it, but I know this will be good. This is a good program for everyone to go through and implement for the rest of their business and personal. So I'm excited about it. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you, Lynn. You're the best. Everyone, please go and follow Lynn and follow what she's up to. I will put everything in the show notes in the description. You will find it. I promise you. Thank you, Lynn, for coming. And everybody, thank you for listening to the Idea to Empire podcast. I'm Chanaye Jackson, and we'll talk next time. Bye.